You are listening to the Marketing 32 Show with your host, Brett Allen.
Hi, Brett Allen here, host of the Marketing 32 Show, where I connect with leading dentists, dental influencers, and industry experts to uncover the latest and greatest when it comes to helping your practice to grow and thrive. As always, this episode is brought to you by our team here at Marketing 32. We are the only dental marketing team that I know of with a performance guarantee that if we're not helping you grow, you don't pay. We truly try to add value in all of our relationships, and we only work with those practices that we know we can help accelerate their growth. So if you're looking into marketing and need help with growth, head over to marketing32.com. We'll have a quick conversation and we'll let you know if we can help you or not. Quick shout out to Ian McNichol. Recently had a great conversation with him on the show. He's with Icon Dental Partners. They offer a revolutionary new approach to group practice and DPOs. It's really, really cool. So you should go check out that episode. Excited to have a new friend of mine on the show today, Erin Glending. We recently met at the Speakers Consulting Network Summit in California. She is a healthcare management advisor, consultant, and speaker who helps dental practices uncover the hidden weak points in their operations, the kind that quietly drain profitability and wear teams down. She draws on her experience in enterprise healthcare leadership and over 20 years in dental practice operations. She helps dental leaders and their teams evaluate the systems a practice already runs on and pinpoints where reliability breaks down. So small problems get caught before they cost money, morale, or quality of care. The result is stronger margins, a healthier culture, and a practice that runs on design, not just on talent. Welcome to the show, Erin. Excited to talk with you.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this will be fun. I'm really interested in your background in hospital administration and what you bring from an enterprise standpoint into dental, into the industry. And I want to learn more about and talk more about how you work with practices. So maybe let's start with your background. Like, how did you get into dentistry? Walk us through that story and what you're doing today.
So I got into dentistry initially a little bit by accident. I was in undergrad and I worked at Barnes & Noble. So this was a long time ago when Barnes & Noble was a thing, when people went, when there was one on every corner. And
Right.
I was a bookseller.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I think again, this was a long time ago. I think I made like $7.95 an hour or something. And at a certain point, I was like, this isn't working. You know, I have rent to pay. I'm in college. I need something better.
Yeah.
And I found an ad in the newspaper. Again,
okay.
This is a long time ago.
Dating ourselves a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. In the newspaper for an orthodontic assistant. And it was no experience necessary. You didn't need to have a license or a certification. This was in Columbus, Ohio, because for undergrad, I went to Ohio State. Go Buckeyes. And in Ohio at that time, you didn't have to have any kind of certification. You could just get trained on the job. And it was for $10 an hour. And I thought, I mean, there you go.
Quite the jump in pay. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So that's how I got into it. I got hired by a practice that had a couple of different locations, and I worked as an assistant. And then I quickly moved into clinical coordinating for all 4 of the locations.
Wow.
From there, I had an opportunity to open a practice, an ortho practice, from scratch orthodontic practice. With an orthodontist. And that was kind of a from the frying pan into the fire experience.
Wow.
Because it was everything, right? I mean, it was designing the practice, managing the practice, everything.
Operations,
Yeah. And so that was kind of how dentistry happened for me. And then my specialty and what I do now in terms of bringing more enterprise healthcare traits and techniques into dentistry came from grad school initially. So when I was in graduate school, I have an MHA. So it's a master's of healthcare administration.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like a business degree for managing hospitals is the
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
So, learned tons of great information when I was in grad school, and then worked in some hospital systems. Because of my background, I was still in dentistry. So it was dentistry, but hospital based dentistry. So associated with hospitals, teaching hospitals, and residency programs. So that was sort of where I had the chance to really be able to see how dentistry coordinates with enterprise healthcare and what it looks like when you're running dentistry at a different kind of level with different goals, with
Mm.
different policies.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot during that time, and I was able to really see that you can take those things and you can apply them to smaller private practices too, or even DSO systems. I mean, there are very few DSO systems that are as big as the Cleveland Clinic. So
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
in 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 terms of size, even large DSOs are relatively small when you're talking about enterprise healthcare.
Yeah, there's not many organizations in dentistry that are that big where you get a corporate environment it's very much small business or even at most mid-sized business, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, I'm excited to learn more about that with you, talk more about that. So how did you get into, so what segued from that world to dentistry? You came back to dentistry?
Well, so because I was operations management was how I worked with the hospitals. So there are two
Okay.
different types of hospital administrators. There are administrators, which are like spreadsheet phone meeting people. And then there are operations managers. So operations managers are a little bit more frontline. So you actually have your own departments or divisions. You manage the people in those departments and divisions. You manage the physicians and the rest of the staff. So that was the kind of hospital leadership that I did. And it was within the dental specialty.
Okay.
There aren't a ton of people who do exactly what I do, who specialize in dentistry and have a background in dentistry, but work within enterprise systems. So it was one of those things where even if I wanted to like jump into cardio operations or something, it's sort of one of those things where it's like, well, but you know about dentistry, right? Because nobody else here does. So it's,
Oh,
it
gotcha.
ends up like
Yeah.
that.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So okay. So yeah, and I'm eager to talk about high reliability, kind of what you were bringing from that corporate background into dentistry. Walk us through how you went from that world back into the consulting space in dental now. Yeah. So starting your
So
own practice, I guess,
yeah, I
consultancy.
um I actually I had been doing some consulting work all throughout when I was working within healthcare, only because I had started consulting. Wow, 2014 is when I started my company initially.
Wow.
And
Okay.
that was around the same time that I started working in healthcare. And it was beneficial for me because it allowed me to kind of keep my finger on the pulse. Most of what I was doing at that time was consulting for dental practices that I had actually worked with in the past or referrals from them and just, kind of a project here and there.
Hmm.
I moved back into it full time for COVID. So hospitals during COVID, that it was tough. It was a tough time.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna talk a little bit about burnout here in a little
Yeah.
while. And that, I mean, I think you could talk to anyone that worked in a hospital system during that time. And
Um,
it
was-
I think I had a really good opportunity to be able to look and say, okay, where can I be the most effective and where can I have the most value? COVID was a really interesting time for me because since I was already consulting, um, I did have the opportunity to be able to talk with a lot of private practice dentists who all of a sudden had questions about the kind of things that hospital systems have been doing for a really long time because of all of the increase in, regulation, or
Mm-hmm.
having to work with fewer people all of a sudden, having to
Mm-hmm.
kind of take a look at your systems and make them a little bit different. So it became obvious to me that it was just a really good opportunity for me, and a time where I could, pull away from the day-to-day enterprise healthcare management, and be able to kind of go back into helping dental practices, which is really, I mean, that's what I love. I love dentistry. And I've worked in dentistry for such a long time in so many different aspects of it, and with different specialists, that to be able to do that and to have that opportunity was, I feel really lucky to be
Yeah.
able to have done what I did.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So yeah, I'm glad you're in dental too. Let's talk about how you work with practices. And prior to the show, we were talking about this concept of high reliability and bringing that into dentistry and operations and how you work with teams. Walk us through more of what that actually means and how you work with practices, and maybe even, I guess, well, let's start there, and then I've got some follow-up questions I want to ask you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, high level, high reliability is, it's an overall system that's utilized in lots of industries, not just healthcare.
Right.
It actually, it got its start in aviation. It's used in nuclear power, the military, and then healthcare was kind of late to the game, like a little late on the arc, actually, to get it started. But what it is it's a set of techniques, and traits that organizations can develop, where you start to see your work a little bit differently, because the focus becomes a goal of reliability as opposed to a goal of more. So,
Mm.
an example of that is, in dentistry right now, we have more data than we have ever had before. Everybody's got
Hmm.
KPIs. We've all had systems since at least the 90s, right? And
Yeah.
everything is based on outcomes. So we build our systems, and our goals, the KPIs that we measure, they're all based on outcomes. So basically, what we do is we build our businesses on output, which makes sense. That's what you would do if you were running a bank
Hmm.
or a retail store, or, anything like that. The difference is dentistry at its heart is a high stakes industry. I mean, it is there. If things don't go well, things really don't go well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
that's true of, all of those other high stakes industries that we mentioned, that are really ingrained with the idea of high reliability. So it isn't something that's really part of the regular nomenclature of dentistry. We don't go around talking about, you know, utilizing high reliability systems. That isn't something
Yeah.
that we
That.
do,
Yeah.
because nobody's telling us that we should. It
Yeah.
it exists. It's there.
Sure.
We
Well,
just don't talk
yeah,
about it.
and we've had guests on the show where we talk about, sanitization, OSHA requirements, and keeping
Mhm.
everything in check so that you're organized, and yeah. But yeah, this taking it to the next level of, not only do we have a system, but is the system optimized to its best, right? That's kind of what you're talking about.
It is, and there are some things that are not intuitive, really, that are kind of part of it. So when we say the word reliability, we think of that in terms of, oh, that means you get the same answer every time, you get the
Ev-
same outcome every time, and
Right.
obviously that is the crux of it. But it happens when you really do utilize the techniques of high reliability and continuous quality improvement. You're doing it in ways that are really interesting. So
Mm.
what you get is, instead of developing systems and goals that are primarily for output, that are primarily for growth, for example, you sort of shift the way that you look at what you do. and you start to, at its core, and the way that it's utilized in other industries, you really start looking at things in terms of overall safety. That's where it came from. It came
Okay.
from the idea of safety. So you have, obviously, like you mentioned, infection control and that kind of thing. This is different. This is more about how you actually do things. So it's not necessarily about making sure that you have a sterilization system. It's about how you design that sterilization system in order to make sure that there isn't too much pressure on the people that have to do the system. Because when you put too much pressure on people, people are a finite resource.
Yeah.
And we do people things, right? I mean, we've all seen the memes, people be people in. And we forget things, we get distracted, we misunderstand, we get tired, crabby,
Yeah.
and when you don't have systems that allow people to be people,
Mm.
um, they don't work as well as you want them to. Even if it looks like you're getting the output that you want, there are probably somewhere along the line some negative ramifications of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. How are we getting the most out of our people? Not just from a systems and process standpoint, but where you're leveraging their skill set in a way that everybody's getting better. The whole system's getting better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And you also have an idea when you really get into this, and when you have leaders, because this sort of thing, it has to start from the top. Leaders
Mm,
have to be the ones that that get on board with it.
mm,
When you look at industries like enterprise healthcare, for example, hospital systems, that sort of get on board is institutionalized. It doesn't even come from the leaders within a hospital system. It comes from, the government. It comes
the
from
industry.
payers.
Yeah, that's just how it
Exactly.
is.
You
Yeah.
don't have a choice. This is what you're going to do. You're going to follow these protocols. You're going to have these things in place. You'll have these entire departments that focus just on reliability, and
Yeah.
it's because it's coming from the outside. And I think
Mm,
in dentistry, it's easy to think that that's not necessarily true, because we don't have, there's no kind of accreditation body in dentistry that's saying, hey, let's talk about how reliable your systems are. Let's look at your level of quality improvement. Let's really take a look at what's happening in your practice and how you're actually performing. There isn't
mm,
really anybody that
yeah.
everyone is aware of that does that, but we do have those kind of external pressures, and they come from patients, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they come from patients, they come from team members.
Yep.
So if you have a practice where you have a lot of patient attrition, there is a reliability problem there. If
Yeah.
you have a
Yeah.
practice where you have lots of turnover, it's a reliability problem. And
Yeah.
it's not necessarily reliability in terms of, can I trust you? It's a little different than that. It's more reliability in terms of, do people feel continuously safe in this environment? So, if I work for you, do I feel like I'm being supported, or do I feel like I am a tool to get you the output that you're looking for? That's kind
Yeah.
of the difference.
Yeah. It's less focused so much on the goal of like checking a box and more focused on like quality of experience maybe for the patient and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Of like how is this all contributing to the outcome for the patient versus okay, I'm just doing this because this is what's in the system.
well,
Yeah.
and you look at, so when you have a system, for example, that has a lot of steps in it,
Uh-huh.
and someone is expected to do that system either when the schedule is exactly perfect, or when the schedule is overscheduled because maybe you had an emergency or something didn't go well. When a person is expected to do that complicated system just as well in either situation, um, y- you don't have a system where anyone's going to be happy at the end of the day. right? The person who has to do it, they're not going to feel great about it because the system wasn't designed for the time when things aren't
Got it.
exactly right. And
Yeah.
there will be a patient who is going to end up with not a great experience
Mm,
or, and that's best case scenario. We
yeah.
we work in a high risk field. There could be other things that could happen too, but the idea is we identify within our systems places where maybe something could go wrong, where there might be problems. We do that proactively. And by doing that, we support not only the people that are doing the work, but also the people that are experiencing the work too.
Mm, mm. I
And
like that.
it,
Yeah.
you know, at the end of the day, it gets us where we want to go anyway. We want systems that create output. We want higher production. We want higher collections. Happy
Right.
people get you
Yeah.
there.
There's
Happy
leading indicators
patients,
that
happy team
contribute.
members.
Yeah. Well, so
Exactly.
so let's talk about that deeper a little bit. Like when you're working with a practice, what's it like? What's your process like? How do you identify these things? How do you help implement? Uh, I, we've had numerous consultants, dental consultants on the show. We were talking about this, everyone's got their unique method or approach, and some are better at specific areas than others in how they work with practices. How do you work with practices? What's it like to work with you? And walk us through that.
So most practices now have systems, right? Um, if you don't have any systems,
Yeah.
like you're really behind. But
You're,
most practices do have systems. It's been
yeah.
decades that we've been
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
And for me, just like any other consultant, we get called most of the time because something isn't exactly right. Because, somewhere along the line, someone within that practice feels like they need a little bit of help
Hmm.
to get where they're going. Or in my case, a lot of times it's because it feels like things are just harder than they should be. That's exactly what I do. So when it feels like you're just working harder than you really should, when it feels like your days are getting longer, when it feels like you aren't getting the results that you're looking for, that's where reliability, which is what I help practices do, that's where that comes in. So
Hmm.
I mentioned, earlier when we were talking that this really is kind of a top-down approach. So because it is a very different way of thinking about the work that we do and a huge shift in terms of what we think our goals are and how we approach our work, it really does have to come from leadership. So most of the time when I work with practices, I do start with the leaders of the practice. So sometimes that is dentists and managers or supervisors, depending on the size of the business. Sometimes, if it's a really small practice, it's just the doctor, and we kind of start out talking about exactly what this means. If you decide that you want to work on high reliability, you kind of got to go all in on it because you can't do it halfway. And the reason for that is because there's a culture piece to this. There is a huge culture piece where we talk a lot, I'm sure you've heard or had people on that talk about psychological safety and
Hmm.
how it's
Hmm.
such an important thing right now. So one of the benefits of high reliability systems is psychological safety. And the reason is because kind of the first tenet before you even get started on anything else is an agreement that like from day one, you have decided problems that happen are not problems that people have created ever. They're
Mm.
never people problems.
Yeah.
So it's a shift.
Yeah.
And for most businesses, for most practices, you maybe have a person that's underperforming, a person who makes a lot of mistakes, a person where maybe there's a lot of errors. And historically, especially in dentistry, you've looked at that as an opportunity for that person, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you
How do we
retrain
grow
that
the
person.
person, retrain them? Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. You put them on a performance improvement plan, right? You PIP them, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
When you start shifting to high reliability, you realize pretty quickly that that can't be the case. because the entire purpose of high reliability is that if I'm with a patient or if you're with a patient, that patient gets the exact same experience.
It's independent
So
of the
yeah, it's completely independent of what the person is doing. What that means is that if you have one person or two people and there are errors, you don't have a reliable system because you haven't looked at that system close enough to be able to say, okay, wait, here's this point where if it isn't exactly the right person in the room, if the schedule isn't, exactly full to the level that we expect, if the software isn't working exactly like we want, something could and will go wrong. If you haven't done that, then you're not to the point of reliability. So it is, it's a shift, and it can be hard at first. So it starts with leadership. So I initially start meeting with the leaders, and depending on the practice and what their overall goals are, that might go on for a while. We might have a number of meetings before they get to the point where they're really comfortable bringing in the rest of the team. We analyze kind of the areas of the practice where maybe they're having trouble. Data and metrics overall are one of the best tools for me and for practices really generally to be able to see where things maybe aren't going the way that they should. You can get a really good idea of where something is probably not as reliable as you'd like it to be. We typically start there, whatever the main focus is for the leaders. They can identify really quickly, okay, this is where we really want to start. And then that's generally what we start to look at. The interesting thing is, as we start looking, it almost always becomes something else. There's actually really another thing that is unreliable that is resulting in the problem that you have. And we're able to find those. The best part about when I work with practices is when we are able to have the entire team involved. One of the main traits of high reliability organizations is the idea that it's the people who are actually doing the work that are the experts at the work. So that's another thing that's a little bit different in dentistry, and another reason why we start with leaders, because most of our systems were not written by the dental assistant that's doing that work.
The person who's, yeah.
And so it's a shift to really be able to say, okay, wait, so it isn't the office manager that was a dental assistant 20 years ago who's going to write the systems and tell everyone how to do it. It's the person who's actually doing it that we're going to defer to as the expert for how this system should work and how it really works. There's so many good examples of this, because how often do you, and this probably even happens in your business, it happens everywhere because it's not just healthcare, but it's, you have an SOP.
Organizational behavior. Yeah.
Maybe you're training a new person and you're training them on how to do it. And you hear somebody and they're like, well, yeah, but generally in real life, it looks more like this.
Yeah.
Like that, it can't go that way. If that's what it looks like, if you have a system and you have written steps, but those steps aren't what people are actually doing, you are inherently unreliable.
Right. Yeah.
And sooner or later, something will break down.
Yeah, we have one of our core values is fixed processes, not people, which is all around this idea. I didn't even know this concept of high reliability, but it's all about if we have the right processes and systems in place, including for hiring the right people, training them, then it's really not about the people anymore. It's about, are we following the process? And it's not, we don't have to make it personal anymore. It's really, are we optimizing for following the process the right way?
Exactly.
Or if the process needs to be improved.
Yes. And that's exactly it. And I think that, it's one of the things that I think we get stuck on, especially people who are the creators of the systems. So whoever it was that, put their blood, sweat, and tears into the creation of your SOP manual, if there are people who are now saying, yeah, but I don't think that works.
Yeah.
That becomes you're like, yes, it does work.
It
absolutely works. If you do it the way that I tell you to do it, it absolutely works.
Sure.
And that will happen. And
but
so
I can see the challenge of like, when it comes top down process written versus a collaborative approach of bottom up, like working together of like, well, I'm the person who's actually doing this and I see lots of problems with it. Yeah.
And it gives you an opportunity too to be able to say, okay, wait, as we're going through, and it can be a little onerous, right? The process, because you really do have to go through every single thing you do, every single step. And you have to say, all right, wait, if we ever work around this step, why are we doing it? What's the circumstance? When is it that you're having to do a workaround? When is it that maybe there's a mistake here? When is it, what does it look like? Who's involved? How many people? Is there a time of the day? All of that. And you really kind of figure it out so that you can build guardrails. And, you know, when you and I met, like you mentioned at the Speaking Consulting Network meeting, I talked about burnout and about how high reliability can really cure burnout for teams. And it's exactly that reason. Because if you can create a system where people don't have to remember or pivot or plan or reorganize,
ad hoc, ad lib,
exactly. It's just so much easier. All of a sudden, you can just do the work that you're supposed to do. You can do your job instead of doing your job, and then also the job of, in the second, right now, in real time, figuring out how to fix your system.
Being that creative can be so draining because you're constantly having, I get it. Well, this has been, I mean, we could go on, and I can tell that working with you I can see that this is a deep thing that can really have a big impact for, I bet if you look at these practices that are multi-seven figure, you know, 3, 4, 5 million a year in production, they've got this under control and they're really doing this well. We look at these practices where the patient experience is way better than the solo practitioner that's having a hard time and is the ceiling is 50,000 a month in production. Like there's a difference, and it's team, it's leadership, it's reliability. And so I would encourage everybody listening to reach out to Erin to have a one-on-one conversation to see how she can help you, because there's way more here I can tell that can have an impact for the practice. But we're out of time. Before we go, I always ask everybody, what's that one golden nugget, that piece of advice that if they could implement this, if they could have this epiphany, what is that thing? It doesn't have, it doesn't have to be a huge thing, but what is that thing that would really help them?
I would say first thing to think about to get started is really the idea of, is doing a better job, being more careful, paying more attention. Like, is that a system? Because when something is breaking down and we think to ourselves, oh, we have to do better at that. Is that really a system?
Yeah. How many times do we say that? We need to improve that.
Right.
And what happens?
Right. Or we just need to be more careful.
Yeah. We need to be more careful. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I can think of many parenting moments where I've said that.
There you go. You can apply high reliability to literally everything in your life.
Managing kids is, and we've got teenagers now. Most, they're all teenagers, but that, we're all humans. Like, we're grown up kids, right? And so it's like, what can we put in place to help us actually do better? Yeah, that's great. I love that advice.
I think some people are really good at just doing this naturally. I think that's why I do it. That's why I feel so passionately about it, because I naturally think this way. I am a recovering perfectionist. So I've spent my entire life going through and figuring out, okay, wait, but how could this fail? Okay, wait, how could this go wrong about everything? So it's easy for me to do it. And, I think once you learn the traits and you learn how to implement it, it truly can impact everything in your life, not just business.
Yeah. I wish we had more time, because I was going to ask you, have you heard of this concept, The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine Aron?
Yeah. Yeah.
This book, it's not that you're super sensitive in terms of like high maintenance. It's like you are super aware and constantly analyzing And you talk about perfectionism. Anyway, everybody, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much, Erin, for coming on. How do people get in touch with you to learn more about working with you or just explore what that looks like?
Best way to get in touch with me is through my website, eringlending.com. Super easy to find.
Nice.
There is any, speaking and consulting can all, you can reach out right from that site there. It has a lot of good information about high reliability, about the things that I really touch on too. It's a good tool.
ErinGlending.com. Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. Thank you so much, Erin. This has been a great conversation. Thanks for coming on.
All right. Thanks for having me, Brett. It was nice.
All right, everybody. Until next time on the Marketing 32 Show, have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Take care.